Hello, everyone. It is a bonus episode of the Runners Roundtable, and it is like a super duper bonusy episode because not only am I going to be talking about my Chicago Marathon experience, but I'm going to be breaking down the experience with my very own run coach, Jessica Reyes. Sugar runs, and everyone should know because I praise her all the time over how transformative she's been over my running journey the past, my gosh, since like 2017 ish, maybe. So Jessica's been incredibly pivotal for me in running and in helping me get back to my joy of running and redefining what it means to be a runner amidst all the noise out there right now as to, what does it mean to be a runner? So Jessica's been so helpful, and she is the go-to person for me for all things running because while I have a husband and kids, they don't get running in the way that she does. And they don't give me the grace the way Jessica does. So I'm really, really excited to be talking about Chicago, to go down the memory, the memory rabbit hole for this race. But before we do that, I already introduced her as my run coach, but I want to give Jessica just the mic right now to reintroduce herself to us, or maybe introduce herself for the first time for people who may be listening and who do not know who she is, do not follow her, do not just are in the dark as to who this incredible woman and coach is.
Well, thank you so much for that really great introduction, Stephanie. Yeah, my name is Jessica Reyes, and I have been a run coach for the last 10 years, running for about the last 20. Been injured off and on for the last five since having my child. So, very much a roller coaster of a running life. And I created Team Sugar Runs, which is a female led coaching team, which Stephanie is actually a coach on as well. So she is an athlete and a coach with Team Sugar Runs. And yeah, I love really helping athletes dig deeper into their running and find their why. Because while it is wonderful chasing PRs and running faster over time, it's also a very meaningful sport. And I think through my injuries over the last couple of years, I've realized that even more. And just all that we have to overcome as athletes to run, as recreational runners, right? Careers, family, being parents, um, all of those things that we have on our plate, and then to make time for ourselves. So running is very, very important, regardless of how fast you're going. It's just a very meaningful thing, and I really do like to help athletes dig deeper into that. So that's me. And I'm really excited to recap Chicago with Stephanie, because one of the things that I think we both enjoy as coaches is to just debrief with our athletes and go over the race and how things went. And it's been about a week and a half since Chicago. And so Stephanie has had time to kind of sit with everything that has happened and think through it more. And now we're going to go through it all, which is exciting.
Yeah, I've been thinking about, it's so funny because Chicago for me this year, and the same as last year, right? Where I had a lot of athletes running the race and then I was an athlete. So like the weekend was so interesting because I had my coach hat on for certain things. We had our team shakeout. I made it a point to meet my athletes all in person at some point that weekend. So I was busy trying to figure out like, oh, where can I go to them, or can we find somewhere in the middle to meet everyone? So it was really interesting to be two people at once, or to have those two hats on at once, and know that it's really special as a coach to be running the same course as your athletes at the same time, where I'm like, I know there's somewhere around here, or I know they're in this corral, and like I'm here, I'm right behind y'all. So that I think gave Chicago this year it like an extra specialness to it, knowing that I was sharing the course with a lot of my athletes too.
Yeah, that is a really special feeling, I think, as a coach, because I've certainly had one of those days where the race is not panning out for me, but I keep thinking about who else is out there and that they're hopefully having a great day. And you know, having pre-race calls with them, how are things going for them, and are they executing things like we talked about, and is their mindset in the right place, and how are they battling the tough moments? And so that's really, really special.
Yeah, I after the race, Sunday, I sent everyone just a quick message like, hey, just want to see how you're doing. And then I don't want to say I ignore my athletes the week after a big race, but I definitely take a step back because I want them to process. And I feel like this year I was even more clear about that. Like I would send them voice notes and tell them, I'm not avoiding you. I just don't want to talk about the race with you because I want you to have that time to process and to feel, because marathons, the bigger the race, the bigger the emotions. Maybe, I don't know. So I am so mindful of that, of giving people space, which is why even for myself, I was like, all right, I know I need space, even though I could have easily been like, Jessica, let's talk last week and let's break down the race. But it's who I was mentally last week is really different than who I am right now. And that's where one of the things that came up for me over this past week and a half was how the training for your goal race doesn't end the day of your race. The training actually continues through your recovery period from that race and through whatever conversations you have with your run coach or with your community or your support system that finally helps you kind of process and place the experience into, your memory shelves of running.
Yeah, it definitely is a process kind of going through all of that. And sometimes it's also processing that training is over too, which can be sad. And I think there's probably a lot of athletes there right now who are wondering, where do I take all of this energy and all this time that I was putting into this goal, and where do I put it? So that can be just a big roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah,
So, okay, so should we dive in? Because I do have my questions for
let's
you.
go. Let's go for it.
That's going a multitude of directions. But okay, so first, I would love to just kind of maybe do a quick recap, and maybe just like, how did the day feel overall for you?
Okay, so the day was, I think marathons are always a roller coaster just because there's such long events and there's so much that we do to prepare for them between carb loading and resting, and the bigger the race, the I don't want to say the more the preparation, but the more stimulation there is, right? So I I went with my husband and we landed in Chicago Friday morning and went to our hotel, then went to Expo. And again, it's just a lot of stimulation. You've got 50,000 runners coming into the city, plus their family members, plus their friends. There's a lot going on. So I always seem to forget how hard it is to keep up with the carb loading on like travel days or when you're doing a lot of stuff. So this year I tried to mitigate that by having like high carb fluids in my water bottle. So I felt really good. I woke up on Sunday and I was like, all right, we're doing this thing. And it's probably the first time ever that I woke up and I was ready to run a race. Like I was so ready. And it wasn't because I was ready because training made me ready. It was honestly, y'all, I was ready because I wanted to rest. Like I was so ready. I was so looking forward to Monday sleeping in. That's what got me up and going on Sunday. The thought about sleeping in on Monday. And probably also just a testament of I did the training and I did the best that I could, and I knew that I was as prepared as I could be. However, I'll say that I was in N, so the very last corral, and we didn't start running, at least N didn't start running, or I didn't cross the start line until 9 a.m., which is a big difference when you're thinking about some of the first runners started at 7:30 a.m. So
Mhm.
I saw the course go from green, which if you're familiar with races, right, you have green, which means good conditions for running, yellow meaning moderate conditions for running, take precautions, and then red meaning you should not run, like it's hell out there. So the course was green in the morning, and I think by the time I hit maybe mile 15, it was at yellow. And they
Mhm.
had sprinklers out and they had the sponges. So there's also that shift of, oh, I want to start running because I know me personally, I don't do well in the heat. I'm a grumpy person when it comes to the heat, and I wanted to get started running, but I was in the last corral, and just making those adjustments of knowing like, all right, I'm going to be out there when it's hotter, which means I need to pay more attention to how I'm fueling, how I'm hydrating. So I felt solid. I felt solid. I had one of my athlete friends, her and I kind of ran together. She was definitely fresher legs than me. And I just kept thinking, that's my rabbit. I just need to like keep her inside and just keep her in my periphery. And when I started the race, I was like, all right, I think I can do this for 20 miles. Like I think my body can do this for 20 miles. And then at that point, it's gonna be all heart to the finish line. And I, again, really optimistic. I was very, very much so driven by the idea of just getting back into my bed. And things were going well up until mile 18 or so. And at that point, my stomach started to feel funky. And I had no clue. I'm like, this is so interesting. I don't understand. Like, there's that moment of, why is this happening to me in the race? Like, this doesn't happen to me during a training run. Like, I don't have stomach issues during a training run. So, like, why is this happening to me? But I quickly changed that thought of like, well, this is just what's happening and you got to deal with it and keep moving forward. And it was the sensation in my stomach was one of, do I need to vomit or do I need to poop? I didn't know which one it was. So between mile 18 and 19, there was a porta potty. And I was like, I'm going to go into the porta potty, like, see what I need to do. I didn't need to poop, but my stomach was still like, it felt bad. So I'm like, I'm going to try to vomit. And it was one of those moments where I was almost grateful that I was in a porta potty because, a porta potty is so disgusting that you don't really have to force yourself to vomit. Like it just kind of happens. So I was like, all right, like, I don't have to put in too much effort to get myself to throw up. So I threw up and I left the porta potty and I thought, well, that's a new one. I can say that, porta potties and I have reached a new milestone in our relationship as a runner. And it's cool. So all I could think was in that moment, the mental math calculations of how much longer is it going to take me to walk these final 7 to 8 miles. That was like that calculation of, can I do it? Am I going to get taken off the course? Like, what's going to happen at this point? And I sent 3 text messages. First, to my husband, just telling him, hey, I'm not feeling well, so I don't know how long it's going to take. Second, to Jessica, my run coach, telling her, mentally and physically, I feel fine, but like my stomach isn't, or I forget what the text message was, but I wanted to make sure that Jessica knew that like I was fine. If she's tracking me and she's noticing that I'm slowing down, that it's not because anything's happening, it's I'm fine. Like mentally, I was great. It was just my stomach. And then to one of my other friend athletes, just letting her know that I would be probably taking a lot longer on the course than what I thought. So to not wait up for me at the finish line because I didn't know how long it was going to take me. So I get out and I'm just walking and I'm like the biggest smile. I kept thinking, I am Kipchoge. As long as I'm smiling, my body is okay, right? Like for those of you who are familiar with him, he's made a comment about smiling. So whenever you see him, he's one of the greatest marathoners of all time. He's got this smile on his face. So I'm like, I can be Kipchoge. Even though I'm back of the pack, I can smile like Kipchoge. So I'm smiling. And one of the best things about the Chicago Marathon, at least at that point, or I think in general, you really don't get a lot of people saying, run, you got this, you can keep going. Like there isn't any of that. Whereas I've done other races where it's like if I take a walk break, people are like, you're okay, you can keep going. And I have to tell them, I am walking on purpose. Like I am doing this intentionally. Chicago doesn't do that. People are just screaming, telling you you look great, offering you tequila shots, which was insane this year on the course. So I'm walking and I'm like, okay, can I at least power walk this baby? Like, can I power walk this baby? And I'm power walking and my stomach's feeling okay. Then I try running and I'm like, this doesn't feel great. It felt like my stomach just felt like there was a lot of, I guess, liquid in there that was sloshing around and it didn't feel good. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to keep walking, keep walking. I would try to run in spurts, see how my body was feeling, and then I'd pull back and walk. And I hit mile 23 and I was like, I don't want to walk across the finish line. That was my big goal. At that point, I was like, I want to be able to run across the finish line. So, what do I need to do to make that happen? So, I'm power walking, I'm running a little bit, power walking, kind of running. And that's how I finished the race. Very much so checking in, like, how are you, body? Are you okay? Unfortunately, after mile 18, I didn't take any more fuel, none of my gels or my gummies, because I'm like, the thought of eating something made me feel nauseous, but I was drinking water. I was mixing the water with Gatorade, and that I could stomach, but just that thought of eating. And I'm like, I've already, I threw up in a porta potty once. I don't want to repeat that on the course. Like I just kind of want to let that be a mile 18 memory and not a, mile 23, 24, 25. So my goal was very much so, can I approach the race from miles 23 to 25, 26 in a way that's going to allow me to run across the finish line. And I did. I ran across the finish line. I cried like a baby. I mean, I'm so glad I had my sunglasses on because you couldn't see like my pictures, my race pictures are funny. I'll share those eventually, but you could see that I'm crying in them. And my thought is just, I'm so glad I have my glasses on because you can't see the full extent. You can't see the full ugly cry. But I crossed the finish line and I was so incredibly emotional because there there just are no guarantees in a race. There are no guarantees in a race. There's no guarantee that you'll make it to the start line. There's no guarantee that you'll, do the distance without anything happening. There's no guarantee that you'll make it to the finish line. Like there's so much of it. So I was just really, really proud. And then trying to reframe in my mind, like, okay, so this is a PR, and I shared it on my Instagram, right? Where I'm like, this is a PR in vomiting in a porta potty. This is a PR in walking in a race. Like, those are things that they happened. And while they're not what I wanted, I can still be really proud that those things happened and I still finished.
So I love how you were able to reframe things, right? Because I do think like it's always important, and we talk about this in pre-race calls, right? To set out several different goals for race day. Um, of course, you can always have your time focused goal, but then to have other goals along the way that are really important. And truthfully, like sometimes you don't hit any of those, right? But like the way that you were able to kind of reframe what was happening to you and still set goals for yourself while it was happening to you, right? Like, okay, I'm not running is not working for me right now. So what can I do to keep moving forward with where I'm at and what my body is, how my body is responding, right? And so for you, that was walking, speed walking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then getting to a point in the race where you felt comfortable enough to run and knowing that like my big goal right now is to cross the finish line running and to have that be something that you could achieve despite it things really going awry and not how you practice in training at all, right? And I think that's kind of to your point, like there is no guarantee that you can practice things and your training can go absolutely perfectly and you can feel like you have your fueling plan down. You can feel like you're ready for any weather. I mean, Stephanie, you train in Florida, right? So you're used
Hmm.
to the heat, but that still doesn't mean that your body is going to respond well to those conditions. And so I think being able to recognize that that can happen to anybody, no matter how prepared they are, um, is important to prepare for mentally so that you can still walk away from this race feeling like, I accomplished a lot today, because the fact of the matter is you did. Like, you did something that less than 1% of the population will ever do. You ran a marathon and you got to the finish line, and that is something to be proud of. And I think that is really like so beautiful the way that you did that. And how things were evolving throughout the day and you were able to evolve with them, which is a very, very hard skill.
Yeah, listen, I want everyone to know because I've told the story about vomiting in the porta potty to a few people, and they're like, "Why didn't you vomit outside of the porta potty?" Like, I cannot imagine going in, and I'm like, "I was not thinking. You don't understand. We are at mile 18 of a race." Mile 18 of a marathon, for those of you who have ran marathons, or those of you like, I don't know. I feel like there is some weird stuff that happens between miles 16 and 22 where you're not always really in your body or in your right mind. So for me, it didn't even occur to me. My only thought was, let me go to a porta potty and see what needs to come out where. It wasn't ew, porta potties are disgusting. Let me throw up on the, like, that didn't even occur to me. And I think that's so I share that because there's almost a survival mode that gets kicked on. And I'm grateful that the survival mode that kicked on for me was one of positivity, because I've had those races where survival mode is full of negativity, of like that doubting myself, hating what I'm doing, where like it ends up being a harder experience because I'm being harder on myself. And what happened to me in Chicago was more of a just accepting that, okay, well, this sucks. And it's okay for it to suck, right? Like, it's not, and you and I have had, so many conversations on, what do I need to train about my training? What do I need to change about my training so that I can want to run for the long term? And it's really like a credit to having those conversations that allowed me on race day to be like, all right, so the time goal, and for myself, I have time goals, but they're more related to fueling. Like, I want to know how long I'm going to be out on a course because I need to know how much fuel to stuff in my pockets. But our conversations have also evolved to like, well, how do you want to feel? And that's been immensely helpful for me, especially when, if we have that goal of how do you want to feel on race day, that is something I can tap into even if the time goal doesn't happen. And that was the reframe of like, all right, so I wanted to feel like a badass on race day. What do I need to change about how I'm approaching this run so that I can feel a badass? Because feeling a badass, I can feel like a badass whether I meet my time goal or not. And yeah, so I want to say that for me, I'm like, I'm just grateful that that survival system that kicked on for me was one that was full of reframes and positivity, because it could have very easily gone in a different direction. It has gone in a different direction for me.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we've talked about a lot too, is like just being able to feel the way that you want to feel, right? Which is usually like words like strong and badass and things like that that don't necessarily align sometimes with what your body is doing, right? It's not feeling great. It's not able to take in fuel. You feel like you have to throw up, right? And that feels like your goal to feel that way is slipping away, right? But when you're able to kind of reframe things like that and set those different goals as the race is evolving, it helps you to still achieve that feeling, right? And honestly, I think it's pretty badass that you threw up in a porta potty at mile 18 and then were still able to successfully run through that finish line, because that is not easy with no additional fuel during those last 8 miles, right?
Yeah, I was just like, and I knew that I would be breaking down this race with you because I had asked you to come and talk to me about this race afterwards. And that was one of my thoughts while I was in those final, 7, 8 miles, where I was like, I hope people don't hear this story and think, oh, I don't need to fuel in the last 8 miles of a race. No, you absolutely do need to fuel. And that was one of Jessica's messages to me, were like immediately right back, where you were like, are you at least able to keep liquids down? And I was like, yes, like that I can do. And I made sure that I was every station I had my water bottle with me. So I was making sure I was taking little sips in between water stations, refilling my bottle with Gatorade and water so that it wasn't so much Gatorade. But I thought that I'm like, I hope people don't hear this and think, oh, I don't need to fuel. Like, no. And it was just one of those things that for me was so bizarre because I had that 20-mile run that I did. I finished that run. So I was like, man, my fueling strategy is on point. Like I felt like I had perfected it. And I go to Chicago and it's like, nope, just kidding. Like here is the wrench or the monkey wrench, whatever the saying is, in this experience of, yes, you may have perfected it in a training run, but given the racing environment, it's not going to work. And again, like I kept telling, like one of the other things I kept telling myself was, I trained to finish, right? I didn't train for a specific time. Even if you do train for a specific time, ultimately, your training is going to help you finish regardless of the time. So that was another thing I was telling myself, where it's like, I just need to finish. It doesn't matter what it looks like. A finish is a finish. And I can be proud of that, because much to what you said, and I love it, there were people with signs that said something similar. Like there was the two signs that I remember where it's like only 1% of people do this. That was one. And then there was another sign that said, one day you won't be able to do this. Today is not that day. So
I love
those
that.
are things that I'm like, yeah, I can, as long as I can keep moving forward, then I can keep moving forward.
Yeah. Um, let's kind of go back and, this is something we talked about like in our pre-race call, but like kind of as a reflection on your training, because I know you talked about like that 20-mile run that you did where you felt really confident, but like maybe let's recap like what was making you feel really great about your training going into the race. And, were there any sort of doubts in your mind about anything that you had maybe missed in training?
Yeah. So training again, as this is kind of like a peek into the coach athlete relationship, right? And I say it's a relationship because Jessica doesn't just tell me what to do. Like I do tell her what I want to do too. And we were going through training, and I feel like, Jessica, you've trained me through enough summers to know that I complain and I struggle a lot with the heat. And this summer felt especially like, I don't know if it's the fact that I'm getting older, the fact that my body is not responding to heat in the same way. But I struggled a lot this summer with the training in terms of getting the runs outside done. And I had a few runs where I doubted my ability to run the marathon. I doubted my desire to run the marathon, and it was all because of the heat. And I had one run that was supposed to be a 17-mile run, and I did 15 and some change outside. Thought that I hated running, that running the marathon was the worst idea I could have had. And I came home. So I called that run quit. Like I quit on that run, came home, I hydrated with all the things. Hydrated, took a nap because I was like, I need to just disengage with the world for a minute. And when I woke up, I told my husband, hey, I'm going to go to the gym to run. I'd like to finish the mileage for today. Do you want to go to the gym? So we ended up, like the entire family ended up going to the gym. And I hopped on a treadmill and I ran 3 more miles. And this was like maybe 5 hours later. And after that, I had that realization of, oh, I don't actually hate running. What I hate is the heat. And so I texted you that day with, I want to split up my long runs because it's not like the heat is not working. And we did that. And it made a huge difference. I also embraced running on the treadmill more, which that helped shift my mind about treadmills. Like, before I used to be someone that would say the treadmill, like, oh, I don't want to get on the treadmill. This summer of running, no, it went from treadmill to like heart eyes every time I saw a treadmill because I'm like, this is what's making this goal of running Chicago possible. So I would do my Saturday run outside, and then Sunday, I would go and run on the treadmill, and life was grand. Like, I would doubt myself on Saturday because of the heat. And then Sunday on the treadmill would be a renewal of my belief in myself. So that was something that we changed in training that helped me believe I could do it. And then I took my daughter to a concert in Philadelphia. It was the weekend of my 20, like it was the weekend you had actually given me 17 miles to run. And Friday, while I'm in the city with my daughter, she's like, watch, you're going to do the 20 miles tomorrow. And I'm like, I don't think so. And she's like, yeah, she's like, the weather's going to be good and you're going to go out and you're going to do it. And I was like, I don't think so. But I woke up Saturday morning. I had all my fuel with me and I found someone had posted like a route somewhere. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to run their route. I ran into New Jersey while thinking of like Hamilton songs the entire time. That first, where it's like everything's legal in New Jersey. So like that's what like got me over the bridge. And I just thought it was so cool that on one run I could run in two different states. And then I came back, found the riverfront trail that they have. So many runners, and weather was great. And sure enough, I text my daughter when I'm at mile 17 and I'm like, I'm gonna go for the 20. I'm gonna try it and we'll see. And she's like, I knew it. So I wasn't even supposed to. I thought that I was going to go through this training cycle never having hit that 20-mile milestone. And even for someone who's been running as long as I have, that was still something that did concern me of like, oh my God, if I don't hit that 20-mile milestone, am I really going to be ready? Like, obviously, I know I'm going to be ready because no one long run is going to tell you whether you're ready to run a marathon or not, but it felt so nice mentally. And I think in the past, I've done 20 and 22 milers more for the mental benefits than anything else. And so I had that run. My fueling, I was so proud of it. I was like, this is bomb fueling. The strategy is great. So I did go into Chicago thinking, all right, I'm ready. Like this is going to happen one way or another. I was really proud of the training because I gave myself the grace to change how I normally train so that I'm not hating running. Like that was really that light bulb moment for myself where I had like 2 or 3 weeks of long runs where during those runs and immediately afterwards, I was doubting myself. And I'm like, I don't like this feeling of doubting myself. And that moment that I ran on the treadmill was that realization of, oh, you're doubting yourself because the weather conditions are just too tough for you. And again, like it's okay if it's tough, but it's also okay to change things so that it's not tough.
Yeah, I think that is probably the most challenging thing when you've been an athlete who has trained for many, many races is to recognize when it's time to make a change to your training because of your body is changing. And I think we're both in our 40s now, so it's very different than when we were in our early 30s training and what our bodies could handle. And so I think sometimes it does just take recognizing that to be able to start building more confidence in your training again, right? And to enjoy it again, which I think this training cycle for you was a bit more enjoyable because you made that shift, right? And you used the treadmill more and we did kind of more of the back-to-back long runs instead of going all at once. And yeah, that 20 miler was a really like solid mark on your training that I know left you feeling really, really good and confident going into race day. Um, let's talk about like, I know you talked a little bit more about how you felt after you finished, right? That you were in tears, right? Physically, how did you feel once you got across the finish line?
Physically, I was, so my stomach still wasn't feeling great. And, but other than that, I did the systems check and I'm like, everything else feels great. And during training, I had, I don't know what I did, but I like tweaked my piriformis. So like every now and then I would get like just extra soreness in my piriformis, which is one of the like the deeper glute muscles. And that was going into the race. That was my concern where I was like, oh, am I gonna like, is that gonna become a problem for me during the race? Am I gonna feel it afterwards? And I think because I did so much walking, I finished the race and I'm like, hey, body's good. I mean, I was sore, but there wasn't anything that I would say, oh, that hurts. Like it was sore because I did 26.2 miles. I measure my soreness based off of toilets, right? So, like, can I sit on the toilet without holding the wall type of thing? So, I was really proud because Monday, again, I finished the race and we went back to the hotel. I showered and I just laid in bed for like 6 hours. We had a late dinner reservation because I knew that after the race, in general, after long runs, it takes me a minute to get to be hungry for a meal. So I knew that I would not really be that hungry after the race. Obviously, this race, I had my stomach issues, so I definitely did not want to eat. But ended up resting in the hotel for about 6 hours. I mean, I was just in bed. I just did nothing. And then we went out, we ate, went back to the hotel, rested some more. The bed is my favorite place to be. And Monday, when I woke up, I was sore everywhere. And I think that's always the surprising part about for me with marathons is like, where am I going to be sore? Like my biceps were sore. And that's just from holding your arm, like from the position of that running elbow bent position. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, my arms were working too. Like you don't think about it, but my
Yeah.
arms were working. So I measured it by can I sit on the toilet without holding the wall? And I could. I was sore, but it wasn't like other races where I've had to like brace myself, slowly like lower myself. So I felt my body felt really good. It felt like it ran 26.2 miles, but it also did not feel like 26.2 miles absolutely destroyed me.
Yeah. And how did you feel emotionally, maybe right after the race versus a few days after?
So right after the race, I was grateful. I really was just grateful that I finished. Um, and in the days since the race, that gratitude has grown, but it's also become more reflective to like what I shared earlier of the finish line isn't guaranteed. So I'm so grateful that I was finished, but also there's kind of like I don't know how to say it, like maybe a bit of sadness in that realization that had had my stomach been or like had things been worse, I might not have finished. And that like, so it's like I'm still grateful, but now it's almost like, oh gosh, I'm gonna get morbid here, right? But it's like the older I get, the more aware I am of my mortality. And that's kind of what happened. Like that's how I feel now, where it's like I almost feel like I'm lucky I was able to finish. Like I'm lucky that my race experience panned out in such a way that I was still able to finish. So I've had races where they've been bad and I finish and I'm heartbroken because they didn't go how I wanted. And now it's more of that the thought process is, but imagine how much more heartbroken I would have been if I would not have been able to finish at all. So, like, does that make sense? Where it's kind of like, I'm still grateful, but now I feel like I'm even more aware of how precious it is to actually make it to a finish line.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting because I do think a lot more frequently we see people going over and over what it could have been like if things went right, right, where everything went right, instead of thinking that could have been even worse and I wouldn't have even. Do you know what I'm saying? Where like
Yeah.
your gratitude is really so much more, it's just bigger because you realize it could have been much harder for you. Um, and running a marathon, like we said, is already very hard. And so that is interesting too, just also with your experience, probably, right? Aging and experience gives you this viewpoint that just gratitude for what your body has gotten you through, right? Instead of thinking, well, that's not the way it was supposed to go. What would have happened if everything went perfectly? What could I have done? And instead of the what ifs, you're like thinking the opposite direction. What if it went worse? And now I get to be so much more grateful for how things turned out for me, which is, I think, great because that lets you walk away from a race that was so challenging for you and which we can talk about later, but potentially want to do it again, right? Which helps because you reframe things while you were out there and you were still able to accomplish things that as through that reframing process that you went through. So you're not walking away from this thinking, I didn't hit my ABC goal that I set at all. And now this was a complete failure and I'm not going to do this ever again, right? You're able to walk away with it from I set these goals during this race as things were panning out, and I was able to achieve those. And I feel great about how things turned out given the challenges that I had to face, the obstacles that were presented to me, and how I tackled them. And that I think is a very challenging thing to do. And so maybe that is the next question, which is, do you want to run a marathon again?
Oh, yeah. Listen, so please, please, people, I want people to know that runners are not right in the head. Like we are not.
Zero.
We are not. And I say this because so here is my thought process. And again, this is why these conversations after when there's some distance are so important. Because while I was in the race, again, I'm thinking I am the little Latina version of Kipchoge at the back of the pack. Like that is what I'm thinking while I'm out there. I'm thinking, what do I need to do to run across the finish line? I'm thinking, you know, all these things of how can I be more positive? Like, how can I just savor the moment of being in Chicago and like, just how can I just be grateful that I'm here? But at the same time, during the race, I'm like, I'm walking and I'm looking at the spectators and I'm like, that's a better idea than what I'm doing. Like the spectators they know what's up. And I'm thinking, I'm like walking, and again, my thought process is maybe next year I come back to spectate, or maybe I come back and I volunteer, and maybe marathoning isn't for me because I'm like, I have these things happen to me while I'm running a marathon that don't happen in training. And like, I'm having all these thoughts of like, maybe I should just be okay, like with where I'm at with marathoning. So then I finished the race and I'm like, all right, I know enough. And here's like, a little tip for y'all that are listening. I know enough at this point to not make any decisions about racing and signing up for races or any of that immediately after a big race, because I know that those signups and decisions will be coming from an emotional place instead of a rational place. So I told myself, all right, during the race, you thought you weren't going to do this anymore, that you thought maybe spectating or volunteering was the right way to go. But let's give ourselves a little bit of space. And then yesterday, I got the email from Chicago that's like, hey, you've ran this race enough times since 2015 to earn a guaranteed entry into the 2026 version. And then yesterday or Monday, I got all my medals out, my Chicago medals, because I have them out. I have them easily accessible. And I'm like, wait a minute, the 50th anniversary of Chicago is coming up in 2027. And like all these things. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to run it again. Like, I'm totally, as soon as this credit card statement closes, I'm signing up for that baby for next year and then the year after, and probably for the rest of my years that I can do it. So, yeah, I'm going to do it. And it's funny because I've had conversations with other people, and you would think that, like, me telling them my experience, I don't know, I must just be like a very entertaining storyteller, because they're like, man, you make me want to run a marathon. And I'm like, that's great. Like, if my throwing up in a porta potty and telling you about all the spectators on the course are going to inspire you to try it, I'm all here for it. So I think I'm going to keep signing up for them. I'm going to keep signing up for them because I'm not right in the head. And that's really like the big thing. Like, I think all that glucose in the carbs and stuff has just completely rewired my brain in a way to think that doing marathons is always a good idea. I don't know.
I love it. I love it. And that's good. I think the biggest thing that I always want for athletes too is to, even if race day doesn't go as you imagined or visualized or to plan, which is never, right? It can go great, but there's always something that's off. But that you walk away from a race feeling, within a week or two that you would like to do that again, right? Maybe not the distance, but that you still love running and that you still love racing. And so that means that you're in a good place.
Yeah, listen, I am in a place of just and I think it also helps the recovery period is so important. Not only because I'm giving my body the time to repair, but I'm giving myself the time to miss the
Yeah.
running, the structure, the training, right? Where I'm like, I kind of miss it. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like this morning, I was like, maybe this morning would be like a good day to go for a run. And I thought about it last night, but I want you to know that I did not set an alarm, because I'm like, if the run is meant to happen, I will magically wake up early, right? Like that's actually going to happen. But I woke up this morning and I was like, cool, it's been a week and a half. And now is when I'm like curious as to like, what is that first run going to feel like? Like that, there's almost that excitement of like getting back to running, where there is a point in training. And for me, especially this year, like I had a countdown in those taper weeks of, all right, there's 3 more runs until Chicago, 2 more runs. And like I was counting down until Chicago again because I was ready to rest. Whereas now it's like, oh, there's almost like this curiosity of, what is that first run going to feel like? I know it's going to suck and it's going to feel really awkward, but it's also that the potential of restarting. And I think that's I agree with you in terms of being in a place where running feels exciting again is really important.
Yeah, I do like that. The potential of restarting, right? Of getting to do it again. And I do think like if you're not enjoying the training process, that can be hard, right? Because you only get so many opportunities to race. So really enjoying the potential that training offers you is so important. Um, so I know we have to wrap up soon, but like what advice would you give to other marathoners preparing for a big race day for the remainder of the fall season?
I feel like we kind of touched upon it. And the biggest piece of advice I would give people is to be expansive with their goal setting and to have goals that are not time related, right? So it's the, I think, so I guess it's a two-parter, right? Be expansive with your goals and then be creative with what it means to set a PR in your race, right? So, like, you know, your goals can be, yes, you can have your time goal, but maybe your goal is going to also be to feel strong, or your goal is going to be to make sure you see your friends who are coming out to spectate you every single time they're on the course. Like, that's a really great goal of like, can I be present enough and like aware enough of my surroundings that when my family is at mile 3, 13, and 21, I actually see them. So, can I have goals that have nothing to do with performance and everything to do with who you are as a runner and like your values? And then when it comes to those PRs, it's thinking of how else can you PR in a race, right? Like, how else a personal record? I don't know when we said personal records were only tied to time. I wish like we can kind of go back and like reshape that. But, you know, can your personal record be um you know, marathons, I feel like they're really common to see the signs with like the power up signs. So maybe like your PR in a race is like hitting and tapping on 5 of those. I think I saw someone who they counted how many dogs they saw on the course in Chicago. So it's like, can your PR be something like that? Like something that's going to be fun for you and also just really keep you present in the race. So, can we expand our goals and can we expand what it means to set a PR in a race? Because those things, and the reality is time. Any time goals that you have, they're wonderful, they're great, they are incredibly valuable. But whenever we set a time goal, those are always going to shift, right? And for me, and this is just me, I don't know, maybe you can tell me like I've I've ran enough races to tell you that I don't remember my times from a majority of them, but I do remember how I felt in a lot of them. So, yeah.
Yeah, I do think that remembering how you feel, right? And sometimes when you're unwilling to sacrifice the time goal because your race is going in a different direction, that can make you feel not good because you're forcing that time goal, right? And that can leave a very, I have certainly been there, that can leave a very bad experience on that race for you. And those are races I never will probably sign up for again because I had such a bad experience at them,
Listen,
right?
I'm a glutton. Like I really like my worst racing experience was at the Chicago Marathon. And yet I went back the following year after working with you and I was like, no, I want to remake the memory that I have here. And that's why, you know, I think I'm like, I've ran at this point, it's been 8 Chicago marathons, and I feel like I know nothing about that course. Like even this year, and I straight up looked at the course that I ran last year and compared it to this year's course map, and I'm like, it's the same thing. And still, this year, while I'm out there, I'm like, why does mile 8 look different? Like I was like, this is different. What's wrong? They changed the course on me. And I'm like, no, they didn't. It's the exact same thing, the exact same course. And yet it felt different. So it's like, I think there's, for me, my mindset or like my viewpoint was I had a really crummy experience here and I want to go back and I want to make a new one because I don't want it to be that the last time or just that when I think of that race, that's what I think of. And for me, it's been that's why I'm like, great. Like, really, one of my thoughts after this race was like, I'm like, all right, Chicago, you win. I've cried in a porta potty. I've peed in a porta potty. I've pooped in a porta potty. I've had my period in a porta potty. And now I've thrown up in a porta potty, all at Chicago. So Chicago is just the queen of races here for me. And it's all the same race and it's the same course. And yet every time I've gone, I've been different and it's a different experience. And that I think is part of why I keep going back, because it's like, I love Chicago. I love the spectators. And also, I have no clue what to expect because even though I've been here so many times, I still don't know. And that I think is pretty exciting.
I do love that. That's probably a good lesson for me that maybe I need to go redo a couple races so I have better experiences to take with me.
You do. Or maybe it's like, maybe if there's like a kids dash at those races, then now it becomes like a family race and
Yeah.
it's no longer just your experience, but like, wow, here, like, look at me now and look at how far I've come as a person. Right. And I think,
Yeah.
again, I think that's exciting to be like, huh, how wonderful is it that we can make new memories at the same places and yet we're not the same.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I got through all of my questions. I really had a lot, but we covered all of them in our conversation. So, um, yeah, I think uh, the biggest success for you, so from a coach's perspective, right? The biggest success was your ability to reframe out there and taking a lot of the mental work that you and I have been doing over the last, like, I would say 4 or 5 years, and putting that into practice out there and and letting your race outcome not be impacted by those obstacles, right? Where you still had such positive takeaways from a very challenging experience. So I'm really proud of you.
Yeah. Listen, I'm proud of myself. And it's really just, you know, for anyone who's considering running Chicago, I'm not saying you have to run a marathon, but I'm saying if you're gonna run a marathon, it should be Chicago because they really, it's the best parts of that race are the people. And it's not just the people who are running the race, but it is the people who are spectating. It is the people who make that race happen. Like you are running with thousands and thousands of other people in a massive, like a big city. And yet it feels like you're all in it together. And that's one of the reasons why I love Chicago so much. Like I told my husband afterwards, I'm like, I just love Chicago because everywhere I look, there's a runner. Like there are runners and they're either wearing their jackets or medals or shirts. There's something. I'm like, there are runners here. Like it feels like just like a runner's town. And I've yet to experience that at other races where it just feels like we're all in this together. And the city of Chicago just it really it caters to running and runners in such a beautiful way that I'm like, again, you don't have to run a marathon. Please, people, you do not. But if you do, it should be Chicago. And that is my opinion. And as someone, again, who's run it 8 times and cannot really recall like the 8 times, it is totally worth it. And yeah, I am proud. I am proud of this race. And I'm even more proud of honestly the work you and I have done because the reality is back in 2022, I remember telling you I want to run the London Marathon. And my goal for that race is to finish wanting to run another. And I don't know what you and I did either in training and through conversations, but to be here and have ran London, Marine Corps, Chicago, and Chicago since, like that is a testament not only to my growth, but also to how you and I have grown together and how you have helped me approach training in a way that lets me be who I am right now without having to feel bad that I'm not who I was before. So, yeah.
Well, that is the biggest compliment to me as a coach. So I really appreciate it because growing with my athletes and meeting them where they are is the most important thing to me. And to see you have success in doing that is truly why I think we both do what we do, right?
Yeah, listen, because we are people who are not right in the head, and we are talking to other people who are like, I'm never doing this again, and then texting you a week later with, I signed up for 5 of these. So yeah. Well, Jessica, thank you so much for joining me. I want to kind of, people, you know where to find us, but I also just want to make sure if you don't, I'm the cookie runner. And Jessica, can you tell us where to find you?
Yes, I am at Sugar Runs on Instagram, and at Team Sugar Runs is where you can find Stephanie and I coaching. And yeah, we would love for you to join us. So,
So come on board. If you are like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I want to have fun, like the two of you are having fun, even as you navigate injuries and the unexpected and life, then yeah, come join us. I promise. I feel like so confident now in my ability to say that I promise we will meet you where you're at and celebrate you
yes,
on the
absolutely.
way to where you're going. So,
Yes.
all right, everybody, we'll see you soon. Until the next one. Bye.
Bye.